Brian Altano and Michael Swaim from IGN, and this year is the 35th anniversary of Super Mario. That doesn't mean he's 35 years old. I think canonically he's younger than that. Although also
really,
he looks older. Yeah, he looks older than that. No,
he looks older than that.
It's weird. But either way, this is obviously a monumentous event for video games and for the medium in general, and especially for Nintendo. And so a lot of rumors started swirling around a couple days ago about remasters of classic Mario games, specifically a lot of the 3D ones getting ported to Nintendo Switch. This obviously has us very excited because we're huge Mario fans here, especially the 3D ones. And Nintendo's had a good history of bringing their classic games to modern consoles and making millions of dollars because suckers like you and me, Mike, we keep buying them. So we figured we'd go through chronologically and sort of talk about the classic Mario 3D games. What could they benefit from coming to Switch, and what would have to leave behind? So let's start with Super Mario 64. What's your history with this game?
This game is a very pivotal game in my life because it was my first experience going from 2D to 3D. And I have it, in fact, recently doing VR for the first time, like as an actual part of my gaming diet. It takes me all the way back to that experience of playing Mario 64 and actually having something click and go, this is the future of gaming. Mario 64 was very much, I'm like, this is what 3D can be. And in the way that a lot of people are treating Half-Life Alyx, I think, as they corralled all the cool ideas and they're like, here's a case study in where VR could go. Mario 64, more than just being a great game, a great Mario game, still probably the most satisfying 3D platformer to play ever made, other than other Mario games might compete with it. I just think it crystallized Nintendo as a leader in the field with intense attention to detail, who are able to look at a set of gameplay mechanics from every angle. Mario 64 just used every part of the animal of what could Mario do in a 3D space. You could not have brainstormed a better setup than Mario 64 had.
Yeah, it feels like it was specifically designed for the N64 controller, and I still feel that way because the game's been ported a few times to more modern systems. Namely, it launched on the Nintendo 64, but then also helped launch the Nintendo DS, where you could use touchscreen controls using that weird little analog nub that the system shipped with. Most people forgot about the thing. Or you could play with the D-pad. That game also added 30 extra stars to compensate for the fact that it didn't really control well. We also saw it launch on the Wii and Wii U virtual consoles, but it's nowhere to be seen on Switch. So I think to bring that game to the modern forefront, the first thing you'd have to do is look at what Super Mario Odyssey did, specifically with the Mario 64 courtyard level, which was thrown in as kind of a whole bonus area. That was like one of my favorite Easter eggs ever, to find that naturally while playing through Super Mario Odyssey, to be like, oh my God, I'm in, that's Princess Peach's castle.
Listen to the music.
And so I think Mario 64 has sort of endured a lot of fandom over the years. One, because like you said, it's still fun as hell. It's instantly accessible. But two, I think that like the speedrun community has made this thing this sort of like majestic thing to watch because they're constantly hacking this game wide open. And a lot of that is because they figured out a ways to, triple jump through the geometry, backflip up Bowser's stairs, go through Rainbow Run without, touching the carpet. Like it's kind of insane. And so I think if you wanted to bring Mario 64 in a remastered form to the forefront, you would have to A, use the Mario Odyssey engine and just make the rest of the game in what they did the courtyard in already. You already have a start. And B, sadly, probably take a lot of that fun, sort of hacky, glitchy stuff out, which I know would hurt the speedrunning community, but the cool thing about remasters is that they never erase the original game.
Right, although I would certainly not complain if there were a toggle switch or an option in the game where you played low-res Mario 64 Classic. That could be bundled with it easily. Would you want those additional 30 stars included, is my question.
Oh man, yeah, I think so. I think like the original game is really tight, and you could argue that the 30 stars are kind of more bloat, but it's sort of like an extended cut version of the game. Maybe having them there as an option, maybe not having it like a mandatory thing. I think that'd be really cool. And you just reminded me, there was a hat costume in Odyssey that let you play the entire game as the 64 skin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that's what I did. And so
as soon as I got that, I was locked in.
Yeah.
I will say, I think, and this could be blasphemous, I don't know. I think Odyssey had a few too many moons. I don't think it needed that many.
I agree.
So
I agree.
there is a balance. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, there was Odyssey had like there were some levels that just literally had like moons all over the floor. Like,
you just tripping. You're lousy with moons.
Yeah, I actually maxed out the amount of moons you can get in that game, which was like I don't know what was wrong with me that year. All right, so that's our thoughts on Mario 64. Let's move on to Mario Sunshine. A very special one for me. I would say one of the more divisive 3D Mario games. Some people really don't like this game, and some people swear it's their favorite one. A big thing about that is that I remember it launched on the GameCube in the summer, and it felt like a very summer game. You know, it sort of departed from the usual Mario game where you're going to a variety of different sort of like, the nighttime levels and swamps and stuff like that. And it was mostly a vacation.
Delfino Plaza area mostly, right?
Yeah. I would say equally iconic music and setting and theme. The flood backpack that lets you sort of like triple jump into wall jumps into like air bursts off of like jetpacks, that added so much, and Yoshi as well added so much more dynamic playability to this game that just made it completely insane. That said, this is sort of a notoriously rushed game, and the last third of it kind of falls apart. It's a little sloppy. And so what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it feels a little to me like a Die Hard, or Die Hards are famously usually begin life as a screenplay for a generic action movie, and there's a bidding war and they decide to call it a Die Hard because it's just a good action script. I feel like, especially now that we have the Luigi's Mansion series, if it had been stronger at that time, Sunshine almost feels like the mechanical gambits they made would have been put on Luigi instead. Like, I actually think Mario Sunshine would have gotten less hate if it was Luigi instead of Mario. I do think there's a psychological thing there.
So I think you're completely spot on there, because there's a Miyamoto quote about like, and I'm totally paraphrasing here, but basically creating a mechanic.
Speak the original Japanese, please. No paraphrasing.
Creating a design mechanic at Nintendo R&D that's like something interesting and almost kind of gimmicky, but like in a good way, and then adhering an intellectual property to it. And so I think you're spot on there.
You can tell that's their method of working with the innovation they show with peripherals, and they actually think about how do you interact with this device. And in every property they touch, like Breath of the Wild the temples almost became a series of interesting physics games. And I feel confident that they came to that decision before they were like, and it should be a Link game.
Right.
And so I think Mario Sunshine, it's cool that they're doing these remasters now, because I think the general consumer had their bar recently raised on how to make a remaster meaningful. I only got a little bit into Mario Sunshine back when I had a GameCube. So this for me shows the value of a remaster for remaster's sake, which sometimes people can shy away from. But I'm just delighted to have this Nintendo game that I sort of glossed over and realized I may have overlooked, ported to a place where I can easily access it now. So my thought for this entry is just that Nintendo needs to port everything to everything. I want all the things still available.
And that's an interesting point, because Sunshine notoriously has never left the GameCube. It's only existed there. It's never been ported anywhere else, really. Maybe emulators, that's about it. And what's interesting about this game is to bring it to the modern forefront once again. Sure, shiny new coat of paint, like tighten up the graphics on level 4, as they say, all that fun stuff. But one of the interesting things about the GameCube that makes it different than a lot of other Nintendo systems is that it had analog triggers, and the amount that you squeeze those triggers was the amount of water that you could spray out of your flood cannons. And the Switch doesn't have that. So that would be actually a big problem to figure out how to sort of figure that out. You can trick that, in a different way, like by holding down a stick and holding up on another stick or something like that, holding a button and another button.
Like hold the trigger and tilt.
Yeah. There's definitely ways around it. I know a lot of people who've ported racing games to Switch have figured out how to do that. So that's the big one there. And that, I also think that like, it needs, in the same way they tightened up the Triforce hunting quest at the end of Wind Waker when they ported that to Wii U. This game would benefit from something like that too. So I've actually 100%ed Super Mario Sunshine. I got every blue coin.
Nice.
Again, I don't know what was going on that year, but not a lot. And so, Yeah, I think this is one that could benefit from that. Let's move on to Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, which are sort of intrinsically connected in my brain. Although both different games, that's one of the only times, I believe the only time we saw a direct sequel to a 3D Mario game on the same platform.
Right, I think that's true.
So that's really cool. Galaxy 1 and 2 launched on Wii. They had pointer controls, which everything on Wii did back then. And so I love these games. I think they're fantastic. What's your take on the Galaxy games?
This is not going to happen. There's no reality where it unfolds like this. But my take on the Galaxy games is that they are the one and only 3D Mario entry that I think is a perfect candidate for VR. I would want that to be Mario's first VR experience as Galaxy because of, the zooming, the flying, the gravity changes. I've been getting heavily into VR lately, and that you mentioned pointer controls, and my mind immediately went to, they're not going to do that, but that would be the way to make me immediately become obsessed with Mario Galaxy all over again, to experience that slanted horizon in VR where I'm like tilting around the planet would be awesome. I don't know how the precision.
Labo VR.
That's true. I have messed around with. It's fun. It's fine. It's good for kids.
It was kind of nauseating.
I actually find you build up a resistance to that. In Alex, I went from teleport to smooth now, and my tummy's okay. It happens over time now. I don't know how precision 3D platforming would work in VR.
That's true.
But if anyone could do it, it's Nintendo. So I'd love to see.
Yeah, I mean, in the meantime, I would totally play something like Galaxy 1 and 2 in VR, because I think that third-person games in VR are like really cool, like especially Astrobot and Moss, like games where you feel like you're a giant person looking down on like a tabletop full of toys. I really like that approach. In the meantime, I think if they were to port it to Switch, the pointer controls is an interesting thing. Like, you can technically get pointer controls on Switch with your Joy-Con, right? It's got an IR sensor on the bottom of it. But that doesn't really help if you have one of these. If you have a Switch Lite, you're kind of stuck. There's no IR magical Wiimote adaptation here. Like, they ported World of Goo, which is, one of the notoriously great like pointer control games on Wii, to Switch, and you can totally play it with a Joy-Con, and you can also play your Switch Lite with Joy-Cons, but that kind of defeats the purpose of a portable system. So I think they'd have to figure out how to make this game with just dual analog sticks. I've seen this game running in emulators on PC where it's just slightly up-resed, and like a lot of stuff on Wii that gets moved to PC, it looks gorgeous because the Wii had a bunch of filters that were basically, subbing it down to 720 as hard as possible. I don't think these games need a ton of work, honestly. Like, I don't really think they need much of an overhaul. There's a couple of sections in the first one that are pretty tedious where you're like, you have to hold the Joy-Con or you have to hold the remote vertically and like balance on a ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember.
Get rid of that entirely. But otherwise, I think those are good to go.
Also, in a world where, a video came out yesterday of someone playing Dark Souls 3 with the Ring Fit Adventure Ring. I'm sure the brain trust at Nintendo can figure out how to get the Switch to do what it needs to do. I think it will just come down to, it does it. Does it feel good and intuitive? But it does it. You can play it.
Oh, I love that. I guess I would play Super Mario Galaxy with a Ring Fit.
With a Ring Fit? Yeah.
We're all stuck inside right now, so I'll do anything I can to move around a little bit. So why not? But I would take a port of both of those games on one cartridge or one digital download, because like I said, they're sort of glued together in my brain. And finally, Super Mario 3D World. This is like one of my favorite local co-op multiplayer games of all time. Honestly, I adore this game. It's pretty perfect on Wii U, and it's weirdly one of the only games on Wii U, first party specifically, alongside the aforementioned Wind Waker HD, that hasn't been dragged and dropped over to Switch yet.
Yeah, I think this is the shortest entry in our list, only because just copy and paste that code, bruh. That one's ready to roll. It's closer in time, so it makes sense, but I don't see any issues with just taking that as is. Yeah.
Yeah, me neither. Like it works perfectly. It's prime for local co-op, which you know, a lot of great Switch games are. I think it would totally work as a single player portable game if you're playing undocked and you're traveling somewhere like we used to do.
Yeah. Does it have online co-op? I did it on DS. Okay, so I would love that edition, certainly, especially considering the situation right now.
Yeah, that would help a lot because, like, I don't know, you and I could both wear cat suits and
Exactly.
collect all the gold bells and stuff like that. Like, that'd be a good time. But in the meantime, yeah, I think this is the one that needs the least amount of work. I'm actually stunned that this hasn't shown up yet. I actually think that this is the most likely candidate to appear as part of their 35th anniversary celebration this year because it's one of the best Mario games that the fewest amount of people have played. Because it launched on a console that only sold, you know, 13 million units, and notoriously all the other systems sold better than that. And it's a fantastic single player or multiplayer
isometric baby.
Yeah, it's totally cool. It totally works, and the cat stuff is great.
If you've played Toad's Treasure Tracker, it's almost it's a souped up version of that into a full game, but the geometry is the same. Yeah.
Which weirdly has already been ported to Switch, and this one hasn't.
Right.
So
that's why I mentioned it, as more people might have got their hands on that. And let's not forget, it's not a remaster news, so we don't have as much to say about it, but they're promising a new Paper Mario game. Speaking of Mario games that are beloved, but still underplayed.
Oh, yeah. I would kill for a brand new Paper Mario. I would also kill for just a port of Super Mario RPG while we're here celebrating Mario's birthday, you know? Take the classics and... Like that one, you know, I think it was on the SNES Classic, but it's not on Switch, and it's not on the Switch Online SNES app. So
open that Nintendo Vault, guys. Come on.
Right?
We need it now more than ever. Yeah.
It's his birthday. So ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you want to see for your favorite Mario classic games, both the 2D, the 3D, the Paper Mario ones, the RPG ones, all of them. What could work? What couldn't work? What changes do you want to see? What do you want to see stay exactly the same? And for all things video games, Super Mario, and 35th birthday parties for guys that probably look way older than that, but are canonically somehow younger, you're already in the right place. IGN.